Well, it's like I said last week. I put build in quotes because I'm mostly bolting things on rather than building anything. Now, hopefully this week we're a little more in focus, but apparently the dry season is not actually here yet, and we're going to have a little rain noise in this one. Bear with me. In this video, I'm going to quickly show you the finished product of what I've done here, and I'm going to explain to you why I went this direction, why this makes sense for me and my build, or rather my build. And later in the video, I'll take you through the more of a detailed process of what I did to get this built in there. I'm not trying to sell this to you. I have no affiliation with Milwaukee. Kind of wish that I did. Now let's quickly review what my goals were for the new build. First and foremost was no wood. Means everything's got to be plastic and metal. Modularity. I wanted most of my camping stuff to be able to come out so I can regain use of this space when needed. In general, I wanted to eliminate enclosed spaces where water could get trapped, evaporate, condense, re-evaporate, these little microclimates that I had inside of my cabinetry where I was getting some rot and some mold. And ultimately the goal for any storage system in an off-road vehicle is for everything to be secure. So in the case of storage and drawers, they need to be firmly held in place and they need to stay closed. Now the Milwaukee Packout drawers are made entirely of plastic and metal. They're built around a system of base plates that the various units lock into, and then the units also lock into each other. You can see here how the top of each unit has the same mounting system that the base plates do. Each unit has a latch at the bottom to release it from the plate that's underneath, so you can pull them out of it.
Here's a real-time look at how long it takes to remove the Packout drawers and take them into the garage. Here's a real-time look at bringing the drawers out of the garage and installing them back into the truck.
They include a sturdy system for keeping the drawers closed that is also very simple to get out of the way. The drawers work wonderfully, and it's very easy to reclose them for travel. The drawers come with dividers that you can configure in various ways, whichever way makes sense for you, or use no dividers at all. Now, this is all built on sort of a platform of Unistrut that is bolted to the Utilitrack rails of the Frontier. And I'll show this to you in more detail in the build segment later on. I've got my Jackery 1500 tucked in over here. It comes out also very easily just by removing this strap. Currently, I have a tray underneath here. I'll talk more about this in a different video. I got a tip on this from some online forum. This is a kneeling pad that they sell at Home Depot, and it is sized just perfectly to fit on there. This is now my place to sit inside the camper when I am not up in bed. So yeah, as you may have noticed, there is no couch in here. There's no nap spot, and there's not gonna be. One thing that I realized over the past year or so of using this is that in the middle of summer, when it's hot, driving down the trail, it gets a little too warm in here for me to stop and take a nap in here. In the middle of winter, when I'm driving around, it gets too cold in here to comfortably have my nap. So at those times, I was just napping in the driver's seat, as I've always done in the past before I had the couch. So some spring days, some fall days, I could have my nap here. A lot of days I did not have my nap here. I just napped in the driver's seat. So ultimately, I decided to sacrifice the couch. Eliminating that element made putting this build together so much easier, and I'm really happy with the space that I've ended up with here, and it's going to be functional in some other ways that I'll talk about in future videos. For now, for those evening times when I want to hang out in the camper before I actually set up the bed and go to bed, this is a comfortable spot to sit. I might get another cushion or something in here, but ultimately this is just fine to sit here, look at my cameras, view my footage, even sit here and read. So I wasn't originally planning to base my build around these Milwaukee Packout drawers. When I knew I wanted to get away from the wood, I had some hazy ideas about using aluminum angle, kind of like I did for the kitchen box, and plastic bins to make drawers. I had various ideas. I was really struggling with how I could make it secure in the truck, but also removable, and how I could make it so when things were closed, they wouldn't come sliding out of there when I was going down a bumpy road. I decided to go to my home improvement store and just look at some of the drawer systems to see how they were accomplishing this. And originally that was to see if I could get some ideas for how I could do it myself. So I got to looking at the Milwaukee Packout system in particular. I was like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel here? If I do build it myself, I'm going to spend a bunch of money buying parts and components. I'm going to spend probably a month putting it together, whereas this system is designed, it's built, it's proven, it's very, very popular, and it's very sturdy. Contractors use it for hauling their tools and other materials. And there are a number of companies that make these modular drawer systems like this now. Milwaukee is probably the most expensive, but if you catch them on sale, and sometimes you can catch a really good sale, it makes them competitive or even lower priced than some of the other companies. And one of the things that appealed to me about the Milwaukee system in particular was the fact that it's by far the biggest. There are more components, more options, more configurations, more accessories than any other system. In fact, I kind of wish that I had more uses for it, because there's so many cool things that you can get to attach to these that really I don't necessarily have a need for in here, but I wish I could use them. And if you can catch these when they're on sale, as I did, I'm not convinced that I spent any more money on this than I would have spent on materials to build whatever I was going to build.
I spent around $150 on materials and parts just for the kitchen box, not including the rivet gun I bought.
And I'm not even sure that I would have been able to come up with something that functions half as well as these do. On top of that, I saved a massive amount of time, and who knows how many return trips to the hardware store to get stuff as I would build. I put this all together basically in a day, including the sort of mounting platform that these are all built off of, which you'll see later in the sort of build vlog section of the video. And I don't know if you've looked at dedicated overland drawer systems that are available out there, built by a number of companies, but they are very expensive. They're more expensive than this. A lot of them are made out of wood. In many cases, they're not as reconfigurable as this is. I could shift around the way I put these together. I could get a different type of drawer, a different type of box altogether. I could get a toolbox type of thing to put on top of this one to have more storage. The possibilities are endless here. Well, the rain has been pretty annoying today, and as you can see, it got quite wet in here. I've got my awning deployed, but it's raining so hard that I've had enough water coming down through the gap there that it's hitting here, and it's kind of splashing everywhere. I'm coming in and out of here with wet feet. Now, as it happens, Rain Outdoor has been developing a gutter system that I think is going to work great. I actually have a prototype that I'm going to be testing. I haven't had time to work on that yet. It's unfortunate because it would have been really handy today. But this actually underscores one of the points of my new build here, and that's that water is gonna get into the back of this truck. Now, there's some quirks of the bed of the Frontier that I have tried to find ways to seal up, but water gets into the bed of the Frontier. It has nothing to do with the camper. And then obviously in winter, I come in here with snow on my shoes, or just water on my shoes, water on my coat. I breathe in here all night long when it's cold outside, get some condensation here and there. Water is gonna get in here. One of my goals here was to make it so that it didn't matter. So I didn't have to worry about it. In fact, I could have an inch of water in the back of the truck here and it would not matter. Now, I hope that's not going to happen. Nothing in here is going to get damaged by getting wet. Everything is open and airy. There's airflow through and around everything. And it makes me feel much, much better about the water that I know is going to get in here with my winter camping trips. Now, if you want to see more detail about how I put all this together in the back of my Frontier, keep watching.
I have an ample supply of Unistrut and Unistrut components on hand from previous builds I have deconstructed. Well, according to my initial rough, obviously too rough measurements, I thought I was going to be able to get these two in here along with my Jackery 1500 right in there. But this is slightly too wide as it is to get my Jackery 1000 into that space. I'm going to have to trim down these mounting bases. And that's fine, that's easy enough. I definitely want these as far into this corner as possible because when I'm driving, I can't really see out this part of the window anyway. I can see out of this part of the window. I don't want to block this. So I do want my stack to be here and as far over this way as possible because I got to make room for that Jackery. The one little complication here is that there is an extra little bump here. That's where the gas filler goes down into the gas tank. And so that prevents this from going as far over as I would like it to. I'm actually gonna, I think, trim this base so I can get this pushed a little further over. Okay, that worked really nicely. This now tucks right up into that corner. I think I'm going to cut these middle edges off as well, so the next one can be as far over this way as possible to buy me as much room for that Jackery. Now it looks like basically if I cut right along this contour here that's holding that metal bar, that will give me just enough clearance for those two corners. Okay, so I also trimmed off the left edge of the right one so that that will butt up against the other one. Now, if you were using this system to haul, like hundreds of pounds of tools, maybe wouldn't be a good idea to modify these. I don't know how much of the structural strength comes from the stuff that I just cut off, but for my uses, it's going to be closed, it's going to be lightweight stuff, it's not going to be dense. I don't think this is going to be an issue at all. I hope not. Okay, so here's a look at the whole sort of underlying structure. I cut these 4 little short pieces to make the vertical supports. These are connected to the Utilitrack with these 90-degree brackets, and then an additional 90-degree bracket brings it up and connects it to these horizontal bars. Now this provides support from underneath, holding it up. It also keeps everything pinned in place in position so it can't, slide forward or backwards or pop up and down. It is just will be completely firmly bolted in. So you can see inside of these channels, I've already inserted the nuts, that the bolts for the bases will go into those. And currently I've got everything is kind of loose, so I can get everything in position exactly the way I need it and then tighten everything down. Now, since some of this is going to be a little bit visible, I think I might mask some of this off and just give a quick hit of black spray paint to the visible surfaces here. Okay, well, after successfully getting this put together in a way that tucks this right up in there to maximize how much room I have over on the other side for my power station, I realized the critical mistake that I made, the thing that I did not think about, which is the fact that
when I stick this second unit on, I am gonna run into the side of the camper because the camper tapers in. If I have to scoot everything an inch that way, there's no way my power station's going in there. Dang it. Just when I thought everything was going so well. Okay, so I could have easily just glossed over that and just shown you the finished installation, but that's the reality that happens to me anyway. You build these things and you think you've got it all figured out, but then there's just some little detail that didn't quite calculate. So I removed the insulation from the upper corner there that this was running into, and I was able to get that to snap into place. Now I might be able to go back and re-insulate that corner with some thinner material. When I need to gain space in the truck, those drawers can come out. My thinking is that this will stay. You gain a huge amount of space just removing those drawers. Now if I absolutely needed every last bit of space here, it is just 4 bolts to remove this whole thing as one single unit from the Utilitrack, and that could all come out and it would just stay together just like that, and then it could just go back in and put those 4 bolts back in and be back in business. But I'm thinking this can probably just stay, even if sometimes the drawers come out when I need to put more other kinds of things in the back of the truck. I left these tags on here until I knew this was going to work, but now these can come off of here. Well, I didn't think I was going to get the Jackery 1500 to fit in here, but I had just enough room, and I've just got sort of a structure of Unistrut underneath there to support it, and I've used some of these Unistrut angle brackets there to sort of pin that in place and keep it from being able to go back and forth, and then a nice solid strap to keep it from coming out of there in any other way. I found this little trick online. This is a kneeling pad actually from Home Depot, but it is like perfectly exactly the right size to act as a cushion on there. Okay, well I hope you found that useful or helpful or interesting in some way. If you have any questions about anything that I showed you here, post them in the comments below. If you hate what I've done, give this video a thumbs down. Thank you for watching. It's all built on sort of a platform of Unistrut that is bolted to the Utilitrack rails on the bottom of the... that is bolted to the Utilitrack... that is bolted to the Utilitrack... that is bolted to the Utilitrack... that is bolted to the Utilitrack rails... that is bolted to the Utilitrack... that is bolted to the Utilitrack rails of the Frontier.